I'm going to introduce our amazing speakers today that are here completely pro bono, just supporting our cause. Kudos for that. This is really cool. I'm going to start with Elina Ra. So Elina is Chief Marketing Officer at Xolo, the Estonian-based tech company serving freelancers globally. After successfully hiring more than 100 people and conducting over 1,000 interviews, she will give you the real perspective of employers' view on a good marketing hire. But take it with a grain of salt. Elina's words, not mine. Also, Elina is former Holby. So welcome, Elina. Thank you for joining us today. The next is David. David Blinov is the founder of the F Company, a B2B growth marketing agency based in Helsinki. David is on a mission to build the best B2B agency in the Nordics. Woohoo! And finding top marketing talent is one of his biggest challenges. So welcome, David. Looking forward.
Thank you. Very excited to be here. A lot to say.
Yes, sounds awesome. And then the last but not the least, very popular figure here with us today, Lari Numminen. Lari is the CMO of Sievo. He's passionate about helping Finnish talent thrive internationally and international talent thrive in Finland. So I think we all know Lari from LinkedIn. He is the big voice, like advocating international people in Finland. So personal kudos to Lari and welcome to speakers. So I think we're gonna start by a short round of some opening words from you guys. I feel like I want to start with Elina, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Thank you for the introduction, Ekaterina. Nice to see everyone, some familiar names, some familiar faces, and a lot to get to know during the session today and maybe beyond as well. So as introduced by Ekaterina, I work in a company called Xolo. It's an Estonian company, and been working there for around 5 months and been building the team. So not only in this job, also in my previous role, I've been dedicating a major part of my time and effort to finding good marketing talent, then hiring them, then growing them, and then also figuring out what is maybe needed to grow a company, as well as then what is perhaps missing talent, especially in Finland. Of course, now today I have perhaps another perspective on the hiring part, because I'm also working in a company where I do not speak the native language of that country where the company is located. So that gives me a perspective how to actually get a job somewhere else where you don't speak the native language as well. So one personal aspect to add, and of course, plenty of experiences from hiring international talent, relocating them from overseas, or then of course, scouting already in Finland or currently in Estonia as well. So that's pretty much kind of a short intro to me. Looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully we have a very lively list of questions so that we can actually make this event as relevant as possible for all the participants. Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Elina. Amazing. Sounds like you have a lot to share. Then let's go in the same order. David.
Hi, yes. Awesome to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm David. And I do have a very long history with marketing. Actually, I started my first marketing company when I was 16. I was still in high school, and it was a little bit random. I had no idea that, how companies are supposed to run. I had no idea you're supposed to pay taxes, for example. Turns out you are supposed to pay taxes, but that's just a minor detail. And so for the last 15 years, I've been doing marketing, especially on the performance side, with technology, with data, sort of the latest innovations available at the time, because technology really excites me. And about 4 years ago, I saw that there is an opportunity, especially in the B2B field, where a lot of B2B companies are perhaps not taking advantage of the latest and greatest marketing techniques and methods. And I started the F Company to see if there's an opportunity to help. And since then, it's actually been a very fun and thrilling ride. We've been growing year after year, and last year as well, despite Corona. And the new sort of ambitious target that we have is to be the best B2B agency in the Nordics by 2025. And what it means for us is that we would be working not only with the most ambitious companies and the most complicated challenges, but also with the best B2B marketers on our side, right? And the way I want to approach this is, if there is a B2B marketing challenge that we can't solve, then no one else can solve it. It's a bit of an arrogant way to put it, but that's how I want to see it. And that obviously means that you need to have the best people, right? From junior to senior, the most driven, the most ambitious B2B marketers. It makes me personally very happy to be surrounded with people who are better than me at something. And that's been sort of my vision for this as well. And obviously trying to find those people is not easy. And I can be completely honest and transparent with you guys that when I say that I suck at hiring, I don't like it, I'm not good at it. And I've made every possible mistake in the book when trying to hire people in this company so far. And it's been a massive learning experience for me. I've gone a long way, but there's still, I feel like I learn something new every day. And to me, I'm going to bring this perspective, the failure perspective as well. And, we get maybe 200-300 applications per week, and we get maybe one person out of 200-300 applications. So hiring is hard. And I want to talk about that. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, David. Sorry, I butchered your name. I pronounced it in a Russian way, David. Also great to hear that hiring people also have things that they struggle with. It's not just one-way street, and let's all try to find a way to do this better. And also I like that you talk about failure. I mean, that's pretty cool, because I don't know about you, but I'm quite tired of the events when everything is said in a very mellow way, and everything is very well, and there's just not so much truth to it. So yeah, glad you're keeping it real. And next, and the last speaker, Lari, please say some words to us.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the invite. This is amazing that there's a community for international English-speaking talent, not just in Finland, but there's the opportunity where, if it's about growth, sharing experiences, building a community, this is a really valuable thing. And kudos for building this community aspect in such tough times where you actually can't meet people. Good to see that there's like Clubhouse and all these things going on. It's very, very exciting to be on board. I've been a marketer for a long time. I've spent many years trying to get my dream jobs as a candidate. In more recent years, I've spent a lot of time hiring a great team. To be honest, it's the hardest job as a marketing team lead. You make a lot of mistakes, and it's the one thing that you invest most of your emotion and time in as you're building a team. What makes this an interesting topic, and I think what makes interesting being a kind of a growth marketing team lead, is that let's say sales is a very linear thing. A good salesperson is like someone who's in like a cyclist in a cycle race. Everyone is the same. Everyone has the same targets, and some people are just faster than others. For marketers, it's more like, you're building a band where you need like completely different talents. You need like the creative source, the logical source, the rational source. So it's like having a band of a bassist and a drummer and a guitarist, and you can't, when you're talking about what makes a good marketing hire, you can't say that one bassist is better than a drummer. Hopefully this conversation is going to add to kind of as much about kind of, identifying the talented people and seeing how the band can click together. That being said, it's really good that this is an online chat. So I'm looking forward to some of the questions coming in as well. If there's anything that you want to ask us, I'm really excited to see that this is kind of an engaging opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lari. I really like the analogy with a band. I think that makes sense a lot. And you can't play unless you have all the players in the band, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, but let's maybe little by little start with addressing the questions that I have pre-submitted, because I think there are some excellent questions already right there. And let's do it like this. I'm just going to read out the questions, and whoever of the speakers feels like they want to shoot it out of the park, just take the floor and do that. And hopefully this develops later in a more like a panel mode. Yes, so I'm going to start with this one. Very curious. Are cover letters still relevant? I have heard nowadays, just make LinkedIn profile and CV perfect. What do you think about that? We were pre-plotting this event, so I feel like Elina might have something to.
I can start. So I think it's an excellent question. I think I brought it up in our pre-chat that I've witnessed an interesting, or I've seen an interesting kind of change in the industry or in the recruitment area, is that maybe it's because of LinkedIn Easy Apply and other technical tools that we have, but I'm currently seeing less and less cover letters, and I think it's a two-way street in many ways. So in one way, I really like the approach where people just simply send a CV or send a message, hey, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I can offer. Do you have something to match? And I think it lowers the barrier for recruitment. That's one part. But then there is another part for certain positions. Of course, if I just receive 500 CVs with no kind of even a one-liner indication of why would you like to work with me or in my team or in the company I'm hiring for, then it might also lower the chances to get chosen. But then again, as mentioned, it all comes down to what is there in the CV as well. So some people or some candidates who have a very bulletproof CV and list of skills that is applicable, perhaps they know that cover letter won't bring any value or any additional value because it is all set in the CV. So really kind of complicated thing that is it dead or is it not dead is a good question. I like both. And I like both, and I, as a human being, I have emotions towards both. Sometimes I feel like, okay, why are you not putting any effort to it? And at other parts, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy that you even sent me a CV. So I'm not sure if that answers anything, but I hand it over to David or Lari to continue.
Yeah, I like your opinions a lot, and I feel exactly the same way. I feel like there are two extremes. These days, LinkedIn made it so easy to just press the quick apply and that's it, right? And then for us as recruiters, it's really hard to judge whether you're really interested or whether you just went to the page and you pressed the one button and that's it, right? But then on the other hand, we get hundreds of applications at the F company. And a lot of the time people do write the cover letters. And some people take it to the extreme and they go completely overboard. And then you end up getting, 200-300 applications with, 2-page cover letters where people tell you their entire life story. And, you also have to be, something that you mentioned is the value. Think of what value you're adding with this, and be also respectful of the time of the people who will be going through your resume. And if you feel like your cover letter, whatever you have to say there actually adds value, sure, go ahead and do that. But in my experience, what I like to see the most is when I get the CV and then I get 1 or 2 lines about why you would be the best person for the role. It shows me that, hey, you've thought about it. You really understand the role. You understand what you're looking for, and you are respectful of my time as well. You're not making me read your life story. You can tell me your life story when you get the job and we're having a beer together. So that is sort of my perspective on this.
I very much agree with that. I think cover letters, if you don't have them in your application, I would say that they reduce your chances of getting to an interview. You might be a stellar candidate and you get the interview anyway, but you're shooting yourself in the foot by not having it. I think that most people use cover letters the wrong way. They write 4-paragraph essays about why they should be hired. The role of the cover letter, in my opinion, is not about getting hired. It's 2 or 3 sentences to convince them why they should talk to you. So who you are, what makes you special, and why we should talk. Nothing about your life story in the cover letter. And I think it may be that going for a corporate role, you expect to have this kind of long form paragraphs, but it should be short and to the point.
Maybe also addressing a question from the chat, then at what level of seniority would you say that cover letter becomes more and more important to have? I think how it normally goes is that the more seniority you have, normally it means the more track record and networks and references you have. And at that point, both your LinkedIn profile as well as your cover letter become perhaps more obsolete, because your track record and reputation speak for themselves. And I think also in Finland, in our industry as well, I am 100% happy to admit that I ask for references all the time and recommendations. And I talk to people who are referred by people who I trust. And that's simply because if I get 500 irrelevant CVs to a job position that we are advertising, and I get 3 top recommendations from a person that I trust, I will be 100% sure to talk to the people that have been recommended to me by people that I trust and know what I'm looking for. So I would say of course, I would say more than the cover letter, like make sure you are growing and bringing value to your networks, being active, and actually also leave a good mark wherever you are doing work. Do your best, so that will speak for itself as well.
Yes, that sounds very true. And also I have here, thank you, Elina, for taking the question already from the chat. And also someone here says that they have applied already to F company.
Awesome, good. Please do apply, and please write 2 sentences about why you're the best candidate. Thank you.
Yes, Lari, did you have more to add on this?
I think, so in terms of seniority, what I can say is that I've interviewed candidates with very little experience just based on their cover letter being somehow short and to the point, and the person could reflect that they actually can communicate. So marketing is a communication role. You need to be able to convince people. The cover letter is a place where you can pitch to people. If you have something right to say, it's not based on experience. It's about your ability to actually just convince them to have a call with you. And again, it's not about convincing them to hire you. It's just to, like, why should you talk? And the more personable, the more human you can be, the better, to be honest.
That is just such an important point, and I'm glad you brought it up. Being able to sell yourself and convince others, being able to market yourself is just so crucial. And the same applies to cover letters and also in-person interviews, which we might talk about later on. But if I noticed that a person can't market themselves, then what I'm asking myself is, how can I trust you to market anything else? If you can't, the product that you know best in the entire world is you. And if you can't in 2 sentences tell me why you're awesome for this position, then how can you do it for my clients? And that is what I'm looking for. Just like, tell me why you would be awesome for this. That's literally your only job as a marketer. I'm so glad we brought it up.
Yes. Also, we had more questions about cover letter, like what do you expect there? But I think we pretty much have covered it now. So I want to jump to one other question that I personally like from the pre-submitted. It goes, why should I apply to work at your company, and what's the best thing I'd be able to learn while working with you? So this is a good moment to pitch for your company.
I can maybe start. We make a very, very bold candidate promise that if you join us within 12 months from now, you'll be objectively twice as good as a marketer as you are today. And it's not something that we invented or came up with. I wish I could take credits, but it was actually our employees, when they sort of switched jobs or went somewhere else, kind of the F company alumni, they said that now they're twice as good as they were. And the reason you should join us is because you'll be working on super challenging projects with some of the leading brands, and challenges that those brands can't be solving themselves. Otherwise, they would be doing it. So if you do join us, regardless of what role it is, whether it's performance marketing, content, strategy, design, we will be pushing you to upgrade your skills all the time, because we feel that marketing is changing. And what we were doing a year ago at the F company even is entirely different from what we're doing today, because our thinking has evolved as well and our skills have evolved. So all of our employees are expected to also be learning. We push each other to learn. We hold presentations for each other to teach each other different skills and development. So if you stay with us, literally in a year, we'll bring you to the top 5% of the industry regardless of what area you specialize in. So that is the promise that we have.
Oh, this is one bold promise.
It is.
Sounds great. How about other speakers? What do you have to match with that?
I can go next if Elina takes a moment. It's difficult to match that, getting to the 5% objectively of marketers. I think Siavo as a company, when we hire, we're known for international marketing, and really our bread and butter is going after the world. I think the kind of team that we're building is we don't really know our limits when it comes to international. So 4 years ago when I joined, Siavo was only known in the Nordics, and most of our revenue actually came from Finland and Denmark and a few Northern European countries. The trajectory we're on is that we absolutely live and breathe international marketing, and we've been from our base in northern Helsinki, or in Helsinki, we've been expanding across the world to the extent that there's actually only 2 countries that we haven't reached in the last year. That was Niger and North Korea. So when it comes to Siavo's marketing, the team that we have, there's not much more of a international flavor that you can get. And it's the thing that probably makes our work interesting, is that every day is a bit different when you're going, traveling around the world in terms of like reaching out to different markets.
Awesome.
Quite convincing answers already. So hard to match that. What I would say, why to join Xolo, the company I work at, is purpose. You get to build a solution and market the solution to an actual real problem in the world, which is solving how to do freelance across border and actually establish a company in a digital format, do taxes and accounting. So I think that's one part. So it's actually a growing issue, and the issue in the world that with our solutions, we can actually help many people's lives. I would say that's one. So purposeful work. Second, I would say, of course, excellent, motivated team. So you get to work with good people, international people as well, and you get to actually grow your skills. Third, I would say freedom. We are quite a young brand and young company, which means that many of the things that we are doing in marketing, we are still exploring. So this gives you the actual, almost not the white, but let's say light gray canvas to experiment a lot. So you get to actually, you're not put into a box to say that this is the channel that you need to take care of, but you're put into a box saying the only target we have is to grow revenue. Now tell me how it's going to grow. And then as a team, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to test multiple things. So I think that also grows you not only from your skill side, but from your creativity side. And then also actually allows you to expand your knowledge, not just in one, for example, performance marketing channel, but in multiple ones. And then, of course, maybe the last one is expansion. So we are building local products to different markets. So in addition to actually learning about marketing, you will learn the local context and build the solution that matches those needs. So pretty much from purpose to discovery and working with great people. And then, of course, hopefully cracking the famous growth formula is the gain that you will get.
Sounds like the perfect job.
Amazing. Yes, this was really impressive. I have to say that I want to work for all of your companies at the same time right now. Yes, but let's take some questions from the live chat, because I have been receiving some very good ones from here. I like this one. May I ask about your opinion on the insistent candidates, those who keep applying for marketing related positions despite previous rejection from your company? I think we've all been there. So how do you think about that?
Oh man, maybe I can start. I feel very conflicted about this as well. From some recent experiences, we do have quite a lot of candidates who keep applying time after time after time. And I think there are different situations here at play. If you keep applying for the same job, right, every time, then ask yourself, has anything changed on your side? If you didn't get it the first time, then have you upgraded the skills? Have you gotten some more experience since the last time for you to get this job? If nothing has changed and you didn't get it the first time, then chances are very low for you to get it now. The other thing is something that we've noticed as well, is that some people apply for every possible job that comes, you know, from a designer, then next month they apply for a content position, then for a performance position. And that just kind of makes you question sort of the entire thing, right? Do you have the specific skills, or are you just applying for a job for the sake of a job? And that obviously is not something that sort of works. But also in my personal experience, just as a final thought, we have cases where a candidate was unsuccessful, then they've upgraded their skills a little bit, they applied again, and now I'm just like blown away by how good they are, because we hired them and I'm just like, oh my God, how did I not see it the first time? Because they're just like superstars. But something needs to happen between the first and the second time.
I totally agree. I've had some experiences that we have candidates who apply for data scientist, and then they apply for a content and copywriter, and then they apply for customer support, and then the next day they are reaching out to me that they are the perfect partner marketers. So I think that's, at least from my side, confusing in a way, because that speaks to me that, okay, either I'm doing a poor job in writing job advertising, so you don't know what I'm looking for, or then you as a candidate don't know your strengths and you're trying to match everything. And that normally is not the fit, especially at least in tech context, and I assume in agency context as well. While of course it's good that you have wide skills, you need to have expertise in one or two areas as well. In the performance marketing side, if you're a really good performance marketer, okay, you might be a good copywriter as well, but it's a rare unicorn. I wish we had more of those in the world. So just because you think you like to write doesn't make you automatically a good advertising copywriter. And that's something to keep in mind when you apply for jobs.
For me, there's not much to add to it. I think very much agree with both Elina and David on this topic.
Yes, these are some very insightful answers. I want to read another question from the live chat now from Yelena. Yelena is asking, also a very interesting topic. In your opinion, does it make a lot of sense to send an open application to any company for a marketing position? Why or why not?
I think I could go on that one. I think it kind of relates to the previous one. Open applications, you have nothing to lose. And I think every open application, if it's well done and you explain who you are and what you're interested in, they may not be a role for you then, but you get people's attention. And it may be that like having an open application to get your attention while you're kind of, you express your interest, then there's no reason why you don't apply for a specific role later on, or at least the employer will know you once you're applying again. So I think, especially for the international talent right now in Finland, I think the reality is that a lot of the roles might be, say, very specifically, Finnish required and so forth. And what I would do if I would be hunting for a job right now is I would get myself on the radar of the kind of companies I want to work for in the long run, even if they don't have that role. Getting on their radar, being polite, being very kind of persistent, or just kind of communicating clearly what your value proposition is. And I think a lot of the employers, even if they might not specifically think that there's a role for you right now, if they can see that you have potential, they will keep you in mind.
I completely agree with that. For us, especially in an agency environment, the roles that we hire for are super specific. So we know that next month we need 3 new PPC specialists. So an open application doesn't usually sort of cut it, but getting on the radar of the companies you want to work for and communicating your value props clearly and consistently over time, just like Lari said, I think is exactly the way to go. And whether an open application is the way to do it, or whether you can engage with people on LinkedIn, you can start conversations, you can attend events. It's about, at the end of the day, building the network of people you would like to work with. So that would be my 2 cents on this.
If Elina has nothing to add on this one, yes, then we can move forward. Yes, so how about this one? Hi all, what do you value in employees' approach to balancing short-term and long-term revenue growth efforts?
I can go first. First of all, I think this is not employees' approach. This is an approach that comes from the business plan, and then we as a team execute what comes from the business plan. So that's why I think it's not an individual decision. So we have a business plan, we have goals, monthly, quarterly, yearly revenue targets. Of course, we always, as a marketing team, have to balance that, okay, what are, for example, investments that we do now and we think that are going to bring us revenue in 9 months, but at the same time, it's never either or. As we like to say, revenue today is better than revenue tomorrow. So in a growth company, you have to show growth all the time. I can't make investments only thinking about that in 12 months time, the revenue will start growing. So I think it's never either or, first of all, and it's not a single employee's or marketing candidate's decision. This is a business plan decision that comes from the management board that decides it, and then the marketing and other teams execute accordingly to that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same opinion. Also in our environment, although we are a smaller company, it's never the one person's job to go and sort of think, should I do short-term activities or long-term activities, and especially in terms of revenue. We're in this together, we're a team, and it's not the one marketer's job to think about that. So I don't have much sort of to add to what Elina just mentioned.
I think that's a really good question. Overall, I think marketers don't talk enough about their impact of their work in terms of metrics, whether it's kind of long-term business goals they're trying to achieve, or then simply the quick results of some of the tactical things they've done. My only advice is just know your metrics. So sometimes I see kind of candidates are very confident saying, okay, there's a percentage growth in a specific metric, but when you drill down to, okay, what does that actually mean for the business, then they're a bit more unclear about whether that's actually driving sales for the company or not. And kind of, if you can connect your answers and your impact of whatever roles in the past to what actually the company is trying to achieve, that impresses me a lot more than just kind of, let's say, the kind of metrics that a lot of marketers talk about, which is like, social media views, or, how much, people have been like clicking on ads and so forth. So knowing your metrics and connecting them to the business goals is most important.
Yes, this sounds great. Now I have like several questions around the topic of diversity, and I want to kind of join them. So Tasha is asking, how much attention do you pay to candidates' age? Would you attempt to make the team in one age group, or would you rather diversify? And then later in the chat, we have a question that kind of tries to add diversity in general in a team. So not only age, but in general. What's your stance? What's your take on that? And how do you do it? How's your team looking in reality?
I can maybe start. It's an interesting question. Of course, for us, the answer is always skills and motivations over backgrounds and age. But then it also happens to be so that there's a correlation between certain skills and certain expertise and age a lot of the time. And for the sake of argument, if we're looking at people with coding skills or marketing analytics skills or performance marketing skills across some channels that have existed for the last couple of years only, then statistically purely there are more younger people with those skills, and we get more applicants of a certain age, and then we end up hiring them as well. But if someone comes in and they're twice the age of everyone else in the company, but they have killer skills, they have some experience and perspectives that none of us would have right now, then I think that would be an excellent addition as well. It's just maybe never happened for us yet, but I'm kind of hoping that it will one day.
I would say diversity is very important. I do agree with David that it's skills and knowledge first, and then other things second. So we can't hire based on a diversity factor. We always must hire because of based on skill. I've had experience leading in my previous companies. My team was actually between 18 and 62, which is a quite large diversity in age for a tech company. And also we had in a company of around 120 people, we had over 50 nationalities. So that was very diverse. In the current company, we do have diversity in age, nationality or international talent-wise. We definitely need to put more efforts to diversity. We are still have been quite the local company, but little by little we are adding new talents. We are recruiting abroad also because both Finland and Estonia are quite small countries. Of course, as much as we can hire international talent here and there, we are doing it, but we are also hiring now in Berlin, we're hiring in Madrid, in Barcelona, and we're hiring in Poland, and making a kind of a conscious effort to also look for talent outside of these regions. So definitely an agenda that we are driving, which is of course not only important for the business growth, but also to have a cultural shift that the company is becoming more international with more people joining. So important from that perspective, but still skills and knowledge first.
And the questions about diversity and age, like I think there's an important factor, which is the unconscious bias that any recruiter will be like working very hard to control. And for me, it means that like the age of a candidate shouldn't make a difference in the role. Their background, where they come from, whatever, it should always be kind of skill and talent based, where kind of allowing everyone the equal opportunity to apply and show their skills is the minimum bar of when it comes to diversity. Undoubtedly, diversity is also a strength where it's not just the diverse backgrounds kind of often complement each other. They just often make a stronger team in a sense that the kind of when people are not coming from the same mold, they don't have the same groupthink way of thinking, then that often is an additional benefit. But that being said, every time you hire, it needs to be for the right fit for the role. So that means that there will inevitably be people who or types of people who will be interested in a company like yours, and you shouldn't just hire for diversity's sakes. It should be something that adds to your team and builds when it's appropriate. But for the team, kind of for each hire, you need to look at the best candidate for the role.
Sounds great. Now we have a cluster of like interview related questions that I think is very, very important also to cover. So let's start from.
I think Emilia's question is definitely something I would love to talk about.
Yes, please. Let's pick that one.
You know, Emilia had a good question. She's wondering what advice we have for people who have a hard time verbally articulating their unique value proposition as a candidate during an interview. And the reason, you know, this question it kind of hits this pain point for me is because it's something that I'm personally very struggling with. And I can also maybe be a little bit humble and admit that I'm biased towards people who can present themselves well. And it's something that I know is my also personal problem. And that's why I always try to bring my colleagues to the interview so that they can sort of be more objective. But having said that, coming back to the same topic that Lari brought up earlier on, if marketers can't present themselves and market themselves to me, be it on paper or especially verbally, when you've gotten to the interview, it immediately like plants this seed of doubt in my head about whether, you know, this is the job that you actually want, whether you can properly sell yourself or anything else for that matter. And, you know, I get it, you know, it's nerve-wracking to be coming to interviews, especially remotely. You know, we're doing these Zoom calls, you show up, there's 5 people ready to judge you. It is really stressful. But, you know, my advice would be just practice beforehand. Think about why you're a good candidate for this role. You know, study the company and their requirements. See how it matches with who you are and what you have to add, what value you can give. Practice on Zoom calls with your friends or family. You know, practice answering those questions in front of the mirror, so that when in an interview environment, I ask you a simple question like, what is the value that you're going to add? Or what skills do you have to be successful in this role? And you can't give me a good answer. That's just not going to be convincing. So practice and prepare if it's not something that comes naturally to you, because that's just really important.
I tend to agree to that. And as brutal as it kind of sounds, as a hiring manager, like of course, ultimately a person will talk to multiple people in the company, at least in our case, just to try to avoid any unconscious or conscious bias. But recruitment at the end of the day is still human to human. So you need to convince me on a human level. And actually that's quite often actually a feeling that I feel convinced. Of course, there is knowledge based on paper. You might have prepared a case study, and I kind of agree that the skills are there, but ultimately we are all hiring based on some sort of an intuition that, hey, this person is a great fit. That's also very problematic from the perspective that we get questions like, okay, who is that right, good, fun personality that you're looking for? Because there's no universal answer to that, because all of the hiring managers are just people, and ultimately the choice always comes down to the personal chemistry, because me as the hiring manager, my goal is that, of course, I'm hiring people for my team. So we need to click and like each other, because we're going to work together. And then as was I think mentioned before by David and maybe both Lari as well, the core is also to find that somehow you need to be able to convince me with your unique value proposition, that you bring to the table something I don't have. So I always like to say that my team needs to be the representation of my biggest weaknesses, because that will actually make me shine stronger. And that's where it comes from. So practice, yes, be convincing, and of course, learn how to sell yourself. But ultimately, sometimes you might have all of the right things, but you just don't personally click with the interviewer, and that's also part of the recruitment.
Very much agree with what's being said. I guess the main thing also when it comes to kind of presenting your USP, your unique value proposition, is just practicing or knowing it ahead of time, saying out aloud to other people, asking your peers, what do you think of this? Is this my strength? How do you think I present this? I think if you think about it too hard, it shouldn't be like a scripted sentence that you give that is clearly selling. It should be something that you can say naturally, like, listen, I'm just very good at this thing. This is what my friends say, and this is my strength. So especially to people who don't find it natural to speak out aloud to strangers and so forth, like sometimes the kind of gut instinct would be to practice out saying something like that word to word, but yeah, it can't be too scripted, because in the end of the day, it has to be something that you can relate to that person, you can work with them in the future, and it needs to come from within, from some things that you actually believe yourself. The way you say it is less important than showing the passion about what you think is most passionate and important to you.
Absolutely. I think it's a very good point, like making it clear for yourself where your values lie. I got to be honest, I've had quite a few experiences in the last couple of weeks, even when on paper the candidate would look really good. They have a good CV, they have the right skills, and then you invite them for an interview, and they can't verbalize their value proposition in any way, and it just makes it sounds like they're unsure of what value they would add to my team. And then I'm sitting there like, wait, if you're unsure, then how can I be sure? Are we supposed to, is this the time when we figure out where your strengths are together? Is this one of those sessions? Or is this when you want to come in and you want to tell me why you would be really good and why I can't afford not to hire you?
I would also kind of point out the comment that Raitis made on the chat, is that it sometimes feels like undervalued to come to the interview prepared, because I encounter multiple times in the interviews that the people I'm talking to have not even visited the website or read anything. They have no clue what we are doing, what problems we're solving, what kind of company we are. They are mixing our products, they're mixing our target group, and that's also not convincing why I should hire you if you can't even prepare that much for an interview. So I think that's also kind of the part of the baseline baseline work, in addition to knowing what is your worth and what is your value that you bring to the employer, also doing that amount of research that you think you understand what the employer is actually looking for, and then building that bridge and matching. You need this, I have this, I can match it, and be quite simple about it. So it's not that complicated math in my view.
Absolutely. Like this comment by Raitis is golden. I just back that up 100%. A lot of personal experiences when people come in and you ask them a basic question, you know, why do you apply to the F company? Or, you know, what do you know about us? What's your opinion? And they just, you can tell that they've never even been to our website. They have no idea what we do. And then that's just like instantly, you know, kills the rest of the interview, because you know that the person didn't prepare. And you start questioning, okay, do they want this job or do they want a job? And, you know, a little bit of preparation goes a long way. And it might even give you some ideas that would impress the interviewer, you know, outside of the scope of the interview, if you already came up with something that they could improve, you know, based on that. So that would just add a lot of extra points. So, you know, do spend that 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to make your experience and your interviewer's experience much better.
Sounds fair. Yes, prepare for your interviews. Yes, I really like also a question from Raman. I'm going to read from the chat. Doubling back to what we have been talking before, you mentioned that if you applied once and got rejected, there is little chance to get it to get in on the second try, if nothing on your experience or background has changed. What activities would you suggest a potential hire could do to boost his or her experience so that the next time he would be more successful? So what do we do when we get rejected?
I mean, it is a very good question. And my personal perspective, I can maybe start because I brought that up the previous time, is that something needs to change. Like, you need to show me that if you applied half a year ago and unfortunately maybe you didn't have the skills at the time, you didn't get the job, that you've done something about that. Because if the situation is exactly the same, it just kind of makes the interviewer maybe wonder whether they should do the same thing again, right? Just to get the same result. So, you know, if the question is then what can you do? It of course depends a lot on the role, but, you know, trying to get experience and boost your skills, there are many ways to do that. You can start, my favorite way, and it's something that I've written many LinkedIn posts about, is having a little side project of your own where you practice that skill on your own. And especially in digital marketing, that is very easy to do. You know, you can start a blog, a website, a YouTube channel. You can produce content for LinkedIn. You can learn the technical skills. You can, of course, also go and get one of the many free or cheap certificates that would show me that, hey, you know what, you've been staying up to date with the latest skills. You've upgraded your knowledge on the subject. Maybe you've done a bit of freelance work. Maybe, you know, you've worked part-time somewhere else trying to boost that skill forward. But just show me that you are at a better spot right now than you were when you didn't get the job. I think that would just show me also the motivation, not just the skills. Skills are fine, but the motivation that you're not standing still. You're not just waiting for the job to come to you. You're actually improving yourself actively at the same time. So that would be my answer to that.
Yes, so just applying second time to the same job is not enough motivation.
At least for me, maybe not.
I agree with that. No, but I definitely agree with that. Now, if you allow me, I will use a little bit my position of a host and ask my own question. Although I have many good questions here, but I feel like this will be relevant for many people here also. So I am personally, and I think many people are worried about the AI processes in hiring. So all of this is great, but how do we know that our CVs and applications letters that are very well done and so on even get to you? That, you know, how they say in Walt, a human being has seen your order. Like, how do we know a human being has seen our CV or application letter that we have put many hours into making? How do you use AI? How do you use AI? And what is the situation on that in general?
I can go first. I don't know I guess it's AI, but we use I know of the companies I worked for, we've used some sort of recruitment system. So it's mainly to actually handle the candidate process. And if there are multiple people as hiring managers, you can see the communications with the candidate and such. And then of course there are template answers that we can send, but I can guarantee that no AI sends them automatically. Like we may use a template answer, but we do send them manually. And at least in the companies that I've worked at, I can tell that every single CV and cover letter that gets sent to the company is actually reviewed by either the HR or then the hiring manager. So there is no such thing as having some kind of, I don't know, dark map where they go and no one ever sees them. At least in the companies I've worked with, they are reviewed, including also all open applications. And then also if there's an open application or other application that has relevant skills based on the CV, they are also marked for after. And then when we have a new position, we frequently also revisit the potential candidates that we have marked as not fit for now, but perhaps good for future. So at least AI, yes, but very human driven is my experience.
I'm going to sound like such an old fool. Like in our team, to be honest, I do my own screening for most of the hires, and when we work with our HR team, there's always this collaboration that any application that comes through as the hiring manager, and I think it's in all teams in Seattle, the hiring manager is always screening, which means that it's a human every time who goes through the job profile. I think the fear of AI it's or like sending a lot of applications and then worrying about kind of whether the applications get read by humans. I think in general, like if you send a lot of applications, it sounds like you don't necessarily know what kind of a role you should be going for. So even if there's a few roles available now, I think the kind of my realistic and honest advice is that don't just leave it on your CV and expect that a CV is going to get you those replies. In the case of companies like Sievo, if the hiring manager actually, like I most of the time do, is say that, okay, you can call me between these hours on this day, here's my contact details, then call the person, have a chat, have questions, and get over the barrier that actually it's just your CV that's going to make an impression. So I honestly think that the candidates who reach out and ask relevant questions, they stand out much more. Even if they don't ask you, like if it asks for a cover letter, put that cover letter in there. If it asks you for like an introductory video, like we often do, put that video in there. So if you put too much attention in just like the words on your CV and kind of optimizing whether it fits this whether the content marketer fits the title of your title and that stuff, don't play with robots, play with humans basically.
Exactly the same opinion as Lari and Elina. We're very old school when it comes to recruitment. We don't use any software actually. We have our email address, we have for careers, we have our LinkedIn and a few other channels, and every single application is looked at by people. And I feel like even if 5-10 years from now that changes, and even if there is software that automates everything, it will be built in a way that wouldn't let truly talented candidates sort of fall through the cracks, because then it would be just bad software. So if you do have the right skills, if you're the right fit for the job, I would like to think that I will be able to see your CV.
I also would like to add that I think no employer can afford losing potential candidates because of AI. Like it's very expensive and time consuming to hire, and it's horrible to hire wrongly. So I don't think that any one of us or anyone in the world can actually afford not looking at the candidates or CVs that come to your company. Like, why are you even hiring if you're not putting the effort to go through the candidates? So I think from my side, it sounds completely absurd, at least.
Yeah, same.
This sounds reassuring. Okay, so no robot war is upon us. Yes. I want to read out one question from before that I have missed in the chat, and someone has pointed it out to me, and indeed is a very good question from Victoria. Victoria asks, is it more advantageous for a marketing candidate to focus on selling oneself as an expert in one distinct area, for example, market research, or rather to present oneself as a multifaceted professional?
I'm just going to be a proper marketing consultant here and say it depends, because it just really, really does. I mean, if we're looking for a specialist role for someone who's incredibly good at data analytics, for example, then being incredibly good at data analytics is what is going to get you the job. Whereas if the role specifically requires more broad skills, like, you know, on our side, for example, it would be a project manager, someone who has a wide variety of experiences in digital marketing areas, then of course being a generalist is more advantageous there. So I can't say that one is better than the other. It just all depends on the role.
Definitely. I have maybe from a smaller company perspective some experience that normally in early stages of a startup team, it's more normal to hire maybe generalists who can do a little bit of everything, because of course you don't have so much resources to hire a specialist team, and also because you're still figuring out how the growth is going to happen. But very quickly, once you start seeing traction, I think more and more specific roles come into place. It doesn't have to be just PPC specialist, but it's very rare to see. First of all, it's not possible for one person to dominate 5 performance marketing channels and do it effectively and deploy 1 million euro of money and get the good return on investment. I haven't seen that person kind of doing it effectively. So it does come into question of having kind of a focus in certain areas. It can be that, okay, you're an expert in a few performance marketing channels, you are a very deep expert in SEO, analytics, technical, maybe a combination, but the domain needs to be clear. It's not enough that you know a little bit of Facebook advertising, a little bit of basics of SEO, and then you can maybe write something, but none of them is your expertise. So in the long run, I do recommend to find your own niche first, and then broaden your skills, of course, but more likely you are to get a job if you have the growth marketing skills that every company is looking for now existing.
A quick add to, I very much agree with both points. I think I talk often about this T-shaped marketer, and it's a bit of a cliche. Everyone, you speak so much about it. I think a lot of people might already know what it is, but basically for a small and growing company, the T-shaped marketer is someone who can do many roles, has flexibility and skills to cover the bases on doing different things that they might not be the world expert in, but they have an ability to go very deep in something that's very important to the company at that stage. So like a T-shaped marketer for content, you know, you're able to write, you're able to understand what you're writing about, and, you know, you can go very deep into things like, let's say, even SEO. That's a very different role from a T-shaped performance marketer who can do PPC, paid ads, Google, and so forth. So the kind of candidates I look for is not necessarily that someone has done, let's say, one channel for their whole career, but someone who can go deep. And in the best scenario, it's someone who can go deep, and then they get enough responsibility in their previous roles that they can go deep in another area. They have growth potential to over time in their career, like specialize in things that are complicated, but they can show passion into. So T-shaped marketers basically is worth looking up.
I think that's a very good point, and something that I agree with Elina on very much is that it is easier to get a job when you have a specific skill in something. When you get a lot of applicants from generalist marketers, it's really hard to distinguish. But if you're looking for a specific role and you have that specific skill, it just becomes a much easier job for everyone, I think. And I also agree with Lari that being that T-shaped marketer is the way to go when you're starting out. You know, you need to understand a lot of different things, but if you deepen your expertise in something, that's going to be good. Just choose wisely what that T should be.
Right. Someone says, Colm says, so a P-shaped marketer then.
I like that, P-shaped marketer.
Yeah, I'm gonna read one more question from the chat. It's kind of a new topic. Let's address this. what is your approach to case studies, especially in marketing? Often you are required to create extremely time-consuming case studies. Is it a necessary evil, or should there be a discussion about setting boundaries? I have seen everything from small manageable ones to 10+ hours of tests before the first interview. Do you do any of that?
I can maybe start. We do that. We do that for most of our roles, and I think in the future it's going to be all of them. It is a necessary evil, especially when you're talking about specialist roles, technical roles, because they're hard to assess during an interview. You can say that you're good at PPC or copywriting, for example, but we also need to see it. But I think what's important here is that the employers who request that are respectful also of your time. So if we're talking about 10+ hour assignments, I don't think that's a very good way forward, because you're not really being considerate of the employees. If someone needs to spend their entire week doing your homework assignments, you know, for a 5% chance of being selected, I don't know if it's good ROI for the applicant. So that's why we're trying to stick to 2 to 3 hour mark. But I would say it's also a question that you need to ask yourself. If you do end up facing one of those 10-hour assignments, unfortunately, nothing you can do about it, then ask yourself, is it worth the effort? Do I really, really want that job? Then you go and do it. But it is a necessary evil from my perspective, yes.
I tend to agree as well. Maybe some practicalities from my side, that I never send a task before I've had the first interview. So that's kind of like, I wouldn't just cold call like, hey, here's a random task for you, take 10 hours to do it, or 5 hours. But it's definitely part of the recruitment. Actually, for every recruitment that I do, there is most likely an assignment included. But the way we do it is that first I have the first interview. I tend to interview myself, every person that I hire for my team, as the first person. So if they pass through kind of some sort of check from my side, then I will send a task, and then the following interviews will be done by my team members. And then afterwards, again, maybe with me or with the CEO, but definitely part of an important part of the recruitment process, and also gives my team members then some sort of view how this person would approach a certain topic, and how their skills match to the existing skills that we have in the team, and are they complementary, are they deep in areas where we're not, because we're always looking to hire knowledge and expertise in areas where the team currently does not have any knowledge. So very important, and will definitely become even probably a more important part going forward.
So assignments are important, very important part of a recruitment process. I think I very much agree with what's been said. So there's a time and place for them. So if you have 50 candidates and the first thing you ask is, can everyone spend an hour of your time? Also for the hiring manager, you need to spend enough time, or give an assignment that you can objectively kind of rate and do properly. So realistically, whatever assignment you give, you need to be able to put that equal amount of time to assess it as well. So it should be something that's considered probably in a hiring process, but not as the first step. It's very difficult to see from a kind of, people can put a lot of things on their CV, people can be very convincing in a quick chat over Microsoft Teams, but actually assignments can be the one way that objectively you can see the differences between two people who say the same thing. So from that perspective, it's better to understand that early on as part of the process. I mean, not as the first step, but in the hiring process, there's going to be very important to see those differences.
I think it's also a question of motivation, as David said, that if you think that the task is not something that excites you and you don't want to do it, and it looks like a big investment from time perspective, then look in the mirror and think, okay, because the task is normally almost 100% reflection of what the work is going to be like.
Yeah.
So if you don't like the task, or if you don't find it exciting, there are high chances that you're not going to like the job either. So then by continuing or entering an agreement is not beneficial for either party. So that's 100%. Also kind of a moment of self-reflection for each candidate.
Absolutely.
this topic seems to be really relevant. Com has a follow-up question about assignments and tasks that is supported also by other people here in the chat. Would you pay for the pay the applicant for the assignment? Notice that this is sometimes done in the United States, but never have seen so far it in Finland. Me neither.
I have one experience a long time ago when I was hiring for Holvi, my first international employee, and we asked him to propose an kind of a guerrilla marketing stunt, how to get started. And he made a really good proposal. And then we poked him a bit more like, okay, now go do it and we'll pay for you as part of the recruitment before we hired him. Okay, something I probably wouldn't do anymore for any candidate, but he did it. We paid for him. We hired him. Great recruitment, great friend, great marketer. But that's kind of a unique one-time experience that I've had in this field. And to be honest, I have not considered this to be a thing that we would do. The task is not that extensive, at least at the moment, so hasn't been on the table on my side.
Yeah, same experience. Most of the time it's a short task, 1, 2, 3 hours that is sent out to multiple people. And it's meant to sort of screen their ability. It's not meant to be used in commercial ways. And obviously then there's no commercial value in it. So I think, that's where this respect for candidates' time comes in as well. I think 1, 2, 3 hours is a reasonable amount of time to ask as part of the interview process, but I don't think it's something that we would pay for at this point. If there comes a time in the future where there's a massive task and a big investment required from the person, and we could use that for our client projects, for example, or for ourselves, then absolutely, I see no problem in us paying for that, but not the way we currently do it.
I would add for a comment from Tasha that yes, I think it's a valid point of being used for free, but at least from my experience or from the tasks that we send, the tasks are never kind of actual work, that whatever the candidate provides is not work that I'm going to transform into work that I use. So for example, in the content writer position, we ask for sample text. Sometimes if we feel like, okay, this is an excellent blog post and we want to publish it, then we will of course get back to the candidate and pay for being published. But other than that, we do not use the material. It's more to evaluate the thinking process and the actually ability to build the strategy and also the way they approach things. So in that sense, I am confident in saying that I don't feel that it's exploiting anyone's work time or like being used for free, because the actual work sample is not going to get used in any of our work.
Yes, this is really good that we address that. I for example, I have encountered various kinds of tasks, but lately it's often LinkedIn provided tasks. So that kind of gives you a feeling that you are not, like Tasha said, that you are not doing some work for someone, but it's like standard tasks that LinkedIn provides to some of the vacancies. Yes, but thank you to shed light on this. It's interesting, we're more than 1 hour in, we're still getting new participants as well as I'm admitting some people. Welcome everyone. We're gonna be on till 12:30. So I want to read this one also from Purnima. How do you give chance to people having a strong marketing profile and coming from a career gap? What will be your recommendations for them to get a positive response from the recruiter? What kind of role they should apply as per their past experience, or trainee or junior roles? This is very I think it's a very important, for example, for moms who have, I myself have a career gap as a paternity leave. So it's interesting for me how you see it from your perspective.
I can start. I have a lot to say about this as well. I think whichever the reason for a career gap is it parental leave or perhaps sick leave? I don't think that it diminishes your previous knowledge. So if you have a strong marketing profile, and we're not talking about the 15-year gap, which in marketing context might mean that, okay, the marketing we did 15 years ago is different than now, okay, then you might need to actually look at updating your skills. But if we're talking about a reasonable amount of time that you have been away from the work life for a reason or another, I don't see any reason why you should apply for trainee or junior roles if you have been a senior before, because the skills and knowledge, they do not go away with the time you spend with your child or taking care of a sick relative or being sick yourself or traveling or just laying on your sofa, whichever the reason is. So I do think that there is no reason to apply for that. Normally what I have seen is that maybe it's good for the candidates, perhaps self-confidence, that you can do, for example, a few courses or certificates. I think in the growth marketing area, there are multiple things you can look at, for example, Google Academy or HubSpot Academy, and certificates like this that actually introduce you, I don't know, basis of or the newest in marketing trends, with be it analytics or certain areas of performance marketing or SEO or whichever has been your field. So you can kind of update your things on your private time. But I would say that you can still kind of apply for your level jobs. Of course, depends on what kind of networks you have and such. But in general, I always like to say that don't self-reject yourself, but actually aim for the level that you are, and then read and catch up if you feel like you're not up to date.
Sound advice. I actually even like when they already post on the job ad, already post what kind of certificates they are looking for. So that saves you time thinking what you're supposed to have. So one more, I'm gonna skip one question and then return to it, because we have one more. The latest question is related to these tasks. Dongthi Kim asks, speaking of assignments during the interview round, what types of tasks do you usually ask candidates to do as a digital marketer? So give us some examples. Blog post already we had. Please.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on what the role you're applying for, right? So the purpose of the task is not kind of to waste your time or the recruiter's time, but it's to assess whether you can do it as you're saying you can do, and how deep is your expertise, and whether, like Elina said, you have the skills that maybe we are lacking internally. And then, of course, the task is directly related to the role. So if you're applying for a performance role, performance marketing, then of course the task is going to be about planning campaigns or analyzing campaign data. If you're applying for a copywriter role, then obviously we're going to give you a related assignment. If it's something more complex and more general, like a project management role, that's maybe the assignment that we are right now trying to build, and it's not easy. And then there are tasks that are more that are different once again. So I don't think there is a one specific task for a digital marketer. There's what is a digital marketer?
I agree. I don't know if Lari, do you want to share what kind of tasks you send out? I can.
Yeah, I think the key thing about the assignments that we give, we try to make them as objective as possible. So when we hand them out, we pay a lot of attention to giving everyone equal time to do it, specifying how much time it requires, and being clear on the brief of this is what you need to do. Here's the framework that you should do it in. I agree also with David that there's going to be some roles, let's say, where there's a technical skill that it might be a very, very specific assignment. In other more kind of broad roles, it might be something that we simply want to know how you would approach a challenge. So what would you be doing in this role, or what would you like, how would you approach something quite difficult? Show us the way that your brain works inside of your head. The goal of them always is, from my perspective, is to give an objective way to show differences. So two people might approach the same problem in two different ways. It's not to say that like there's one definitive answer that you just have to Google and find, and everyone, once you crack that, you're the master of it. It's more to show how you approach problems. And it's okay if there's two different people who approach the same problem different ways, but it's important for the team to know, okay, if you're in this team, how would you go about working on your day-to-day life?
I absolutely agree. And I think it also comes down to a little bit the seniority of the position that we're looking for. So maybe for a more junior or entry-level position, I like to have a more concrete task where I'm actually perhaps looking for ability to grow, motivation, existing skills, and things like that. And then for a more mid-level or even senior position, I'm always more after the thought process. So normally for the tasks, there is not an absolute right answer, like this is correct, you Google it right, or you asked your friend and he gave you the right answer. It's more like, how do you approach certain topics? In the growth area, for example, one type of task that I might give is give a budget, give an expected outcome, and then ask the candidate to suggest how are we going to reach our targets, and how would you approach this? What kind of channel mix would you do, knowing that you might not know our niche so well, but if you're a good marketer, you'll find benchmarks and you'll think about it, and then you present your thinking to us.
I think
Excellent.
that's just a final thought, actually, something that Elina said that really rang a bell. What we're really looking for with those assignments is how you think. Because just like Elina said, you know, most of the time there is no one right answer, but what we're trying to understand is the way you think. And then when you bring that assignment to us in an interview, please do tell us about how you arrived to the conclusion, because I just want to hear how your brain works. And that's really the purpose of the assignment.
Wow, we have 10 minutes left and so many cool questions in the chat. So I'm going to try to squish all of them, but let's maybe take just one replier for each now, just for the matter of saving time. You decide who. So Raman here posted a question that is really popular. Everyone is backing it up. Raman is asking, could you share your failed recruitment experiences when you hired someone that ended up as a bad fit, for example? I know we need more time for this, but I think David looks like he wants to address this.
Yeah, I'm just like face palming. This is a question that has kept me up at night just more than it should have. I can honestly admit that out of all the things that you need to know as a company owner, as a marketer and whatever, this is the thing that I'm the worst at recruitment and screening people and hiring people. And the learning curve has been just crazy. And someone has mentioned that it's expensive to hire people. You have no idea how expensive it is to hire people. Hiring, keeping them and firing them, extremely expensive. And if you do make a mistake because you're not good enough, you were not looking for the right skills, you couldn't screen them, it costs a fortune, right? Especially in a small company where, you know, being 1 out of the 10 employees, you are the 10% of what we do, right? And you know, the mistakes I've made, I could write a book about it, probably would make a lot of money. But, you know, maybe one core thing that I've learned is that it's not just the skills that you should look at, it's the motivations as well. When I started this company, I would look at someone's resume and I would be like, all right, you know, we're looking for a copywriter. You've done this before, hired, awesome, join us. And then, you know, weeks into it or months into it, it turns out that the person is just completely the wrong fit, right? This is not, we don't make them happy and they don't make us happy, right? They don't enjoy coming to work every morning because maybe our culture is different. Maybe our expectations are different. Maybe the values that we have as a company don't match the values that you have. And we, at one point, hired a recruitment partner, a company called Minion Recruiting, and they specialize in value-based recruitment. So they look at your skills, sure, but they do all kinds of tests to try and understand what motivates you. And for me, that was like a revelationary moment because I realized that, hey, we need to hire people who would really fit with who we are right now. And to give you a concrete example of that, one of the core values, part of our culture is this radical transparency that we also stole from Ray Dalio's book that everyone should read, Principles. What it means in practice is that anyone can give honest and transparent feedback to anyone else. So an intern can come to me and say, look, David, I think you can do this better. And for us, it's super important that everyone is comfortable with giving and receiving feedback because that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And what we learned quite quickly is that you might be an amazing professional, but this is just not the way that you want to live your life. You are not comfortable with giving and receiving feedback. And it means that you're going to be miserable. You will not be able to give feedback to your team and you will feel horrible when someone gives feedback to you. And it's not something that we talked about or screened during the interview. And now you join the company where you're just not a fit and you're miserable, right? And it's something that employers should take a lot of responsibility for, I think. And that was for me, 1 out of the 50 hard lessons learned. If we had more time, I could talk all day, but this is an important one.
Maybe we should do one more session. I know I said one replier, but I feel like if you have good stories, I love good stories. Please share.
I was just about to add to what David says, that I can also admit that I have 100% failure rate in hiring against my gut feeling. So whenever I've had a feeling in the interview that, okay, I'm not really 100% sure, 100% I have failed in recruitment afterwards, because there is something in the air that if you're doubting and it doesn't feel right, it will never be right. And this is something that I'm trying to listen whenever I have desperate needs to hire someone and I'm short in resources and I need someone. So I'm very tempted to make compromises. And whenever I did, 100% of those times I failed. That's one. And the second time when I have failed multiple times in recruitment has been when I have been hiring for something I'm not really sure what I'm hiring for. So I have a dream role, I write it, and then I hire for it. Okay, the person comes, I'm unhappy, the person is unhappy, company is unhappy, everybody is unhappy, and we end up in an unhappy situation because it's not going anywhere. And I take responsibility on that my thinking wasn't mature enough. I didn't take enough time to articulate what exactly am I trying to find. And sometimes, of course, in a growth company, situations do change very fast. So those are kind of the two things where I have at least personally failed the most. Once when we have like hundreds of hours of time, I will tell that 5,000 other ways I have failed, but those come to my mind first.
Lari, do you have anything on the same? Because
I think that's especially both points actually, and also what David said earlier is I very much agree with. So some of the worst hiring mistakes you can have is when you don't know what you're hiring for, you set the wrong expectations and you set yourself up for failure. If you don't, you're looking for a unicorn of a candidate, and the expectations for someone coming in is that they're going to solve all your problems. That's often like the mistake that you have in a growth company. You might be always thinking that, okay, we're just one hire away from this amazing team, and this one next person who comes in, they take away all of our problems and all of our weaknesses, and this one person who's going to make our team so much stronger. It's very rare that there's literally this unicorn fit that someone walks in. And I think there was questions earlier about some expectations of like what's the dream candidate like. I think if you're looking for a dream candidate, you're most likely also setting yourself up for failure.
Yes.
Yes, thank you everyone for making this sound like a human process. That's from me, seriously. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. $1 billion question from Alex. Mm-hmm. What do you believe is currently the most powerful hard skill in digital marketing if you had to name one? Who gets $1 billion?
That's a tough one. It's not a hard skill, it's a soft skill, but it's related. The ability to learn and pick things up quickly, I would say, would be the number one thing for me. Simply because, like I said, what we do now is different from what we did 12 months ago. And what we do next year is different from what we're doing today. If you're the kind of person who's not flexible and it's hard for you to pick up new things and new skills, new technology, especially new tools, new methods, it might be hard for you, and harder actually going further into marketing because things just accelerate so quickly. So learning to learn, making space and time for yourself to learn, figuring out how you learn best would be my advice to give.
Yeah, David put it sidetracked already from a hard skill to maybe softer but super critical skill. I would maybe add, I used to think that, maybe years ago, my answer would have been somewhere in very technical marketing skills, but now I would actually summarize it in communications, whether it's about internal or whether it's about external, articulating value of your product and talking to the right audiences and actually being able to market human to human and finding what resonates with your audience. I would say that's something where I put my bets on. Includes understanding and articulation and communications. Maybe Lari, you will come up with the hard skill.
Not at all. I very much agree. Like I think hard skills are probably easier to match. For example, actually, like if there's a hard skill out there that we need, there's agencies, there's freelancers. You can always find those gaps are easier to fill. In a marketing team, I think that it is the communication. It's the ability to capture your audience's attention. Like, there's a lot of people. talking. There's a lot of chatter out there. So your ability to communicate and really grasp the attention of your audience is the critical thing that I think people overestimate, like, oh, how, you know, valuable it is to do, like, say, paid advertisement or the technical details of SEO and so forth. Those are skills that can be acquired, but as a marketer, the ability to communicate is more important.
Yes, thank you, everyone. We're out of time. This was amazing, amazing discussion. I'm so glad that I have had you here, and I personally have learned a lot, and I feel like we addressed most of the relevant questions. Thank you, audience, for perfect questions. And I have Delfin Vassallu here, who is my personal mentor and one of the most active people in the community. He has something. Delfin, do jump in with video or audio and tell us.
Sorry, guys, I'm having lunch. I'm hiring. I am hiring. The link is there in the chat. Just take a look. I am hiring a summer intern content marketing. Sorry.
Yeah, you can see Delfin's got the skills of communication. He catches our attention.
This is the community spirit. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delfin being the. Yes, thank you, everyone. Have a perfect rest of Thursday. See you in the community. Colm here has made a great job of summarizing all of our links. So if you don't find us after this, then you don't want. Please stay tuned. We do this every 2 weeks, these kinds of events, and our amazing speakers. We hope to see you always in our events, in our Slack, and in conversations about jobs. Thank you very much.